your worthiness to him and gain access to whatever could be hiding in the basement. The level has a recurring theme of freedom where you can beat it the intended way, or hunt for parts that can be skipped. It's a lovely commentary on the idea of free will and the ability for humans to make choices. But the best part about this level is that the spider part is consistent. It doesn't have any of this, what the hell is going on? Well, I guess there's no hiding from my problems. Look, I don't get this part. Why is it here? What does it accomplish? That first spider part makes a ton of sense. It's straightforward and syncs well to the song. This section feels like it's only here to introduce going sideways, but if that's the case, why is it introduced this way? If we skip ahead in the level, there is an absolutely beautiful introduction to going sideways that's super understandable, works with the music, and feels awesome to play. Genuinely. What is this? Why is this? Why is it structured in the most confusing way possible with mysterious blue buttons and walls that look like they kill you? I'm not really upset. I just, for the life of me, don't understand why this part is here. I really don't. I thought a bit about how I would personally remake this part, and I settled on keeping it nice and simple and using it as an opportunity to introduce the spider orb that shows up later in the level. I think it works pretty nicely. Anyways, it's only uphill from here, occasionally sideways. After whatever that was, you transition into a triple speed ball solely to hit a single dash orb, and then change back to normal speed Q. It's questionable, but it does sync, and it looks cool. I think for the sake of consistency, it would have been better to keep the dash in the spider, since I feel like throwing in a brief form change with zero gameplay steers a bit too much into flowy custom-level territory. That being said, it's still a cool little part that's almost impossible to mix up, so I'm not too bothered by it. I just felt it was worth pointing out. The next key part is probably the section I have the most to say about, just because of how much it throws at you. The gameplay isn't bad, but it becomes oddly confusing for no reason. It starts off with the part where you hit the blocks, and I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it, because it's an idea that worked very well. It's straightforward once you know how to do it, and it has great music sync, which goes a long way. It feels a bit more suited for a custom level than something in the main game, but sometimes it's nice to shake things up. In this case, I think the part works nicely with the music and the overall theme of the level, and even if it's a bit of a gimmick, it doesn't feel too out of place. That being said, I feel like there's a few issues with how this part is implemented. For one, you only have to hit 4 blocks, but you can hear 6 hits in the song. Take a listen. If you look at the original sneak peek for the level, not only are there 6 yellow blocks, but there's also 2 more blocks in total, since they're a bit more squished. I imagine this was changed to make the level a little easier for new players, and as much as I appreciate that, I feel like it's the wrong thing to nerf it. Because once you do understand this part, the missing 2 hits make it feel a touch less satisfying. Technically, you can hit 1 extra time for a coin, but we'll get to that later. To me, the biggest problem here is once again the lack of communication, because it looks like you can slide across and skip this entire part, and there's nothing that explicitly tells you to hit these blocks. When I watched a couple less experienced YouTubers play through the level, this is something that they all fell victim to.
So we're only all for a moment. I press. What is going on? What else could I do?
Okay,
Granted, they both figure it out shortly after, but it's still weird to see them having this moment of, I literally don't know what to do here. One potential fix for this would be to simply add some arrows telling you to jump, like in a lot of custom levels. But then I remembered, the best way to make the player jump is by placing a spike. So here's my personal idea. It's a bit more traditional, and you don't have to agree with it. I'm thinking, just place spikes under the yellow blocks, and also a couple of the red blocks to make it clear that they're bad. And maybe the spikes can be missing for the coin block. Actually, speaking of this coin, D tier, for dash. In case you don't know, all you have to do is hit this last red block, there's 0 skill involved, and the coin is basically free. Funny enough, if you look back at the 2.2 trailer from October, this coin is completely absent, which means that it was probably added in the last month or 2 before release, and it really does show. Some people think that hitting this last block is a reference to the trailer, but it doesn't. Gameplay-wise, this coin really doesn't work, but the main reason I'm giving it a D grade instead of F is because of all the last-ditch efforts to make it look like it does. Rather than the coin appearing out of nowhere, you're actually given 4 hints for it. Firstly, you can see the coin if you miss it. It's a big step up from some other coins I dare not bring up, so tell you what, D+. Secondly, there's a little counter above the coin. It shows that you've done 4 out of 5 of something. Thirdly, a bit of mental gymnastics. Hitting a red block causes you to get crushed by spikes, but by the time you hit this block, the spikes won't be able to reach you anymore. And finally, the skull's eyes on the block pulse green for a quick second. I really do appreciate how thoughtful and even creative these hints are, but at the same time, it doesn't actually fix the coin from a gameplay standpoint. To me, it feels more like a shield of, you're not allowed to complain about this coin, because look, there's hints for it. I don't know. I feel like the coin isn't hard, it isn't fun, it isn't satisfying to collect, and the best solution would probably be to just restore the original 6 hits and move it somewhere else. But if you think you have a way to make this one work, please do give it a shot. So after that, we have one final gimmick before the drop, and it's these green sticky ceilings. In the span of a couple seconds, there's been a sideways spider, some weird blocks, and now this green stuff. If you're a less experienced player that felt extremely overwhelmed up to this point, I honestly don't blame you. It's so much more to process than any other level in the game. And that's assuming you played the previous levels, because a lot of people just skip right to the newest one. To me, this whole sticky ceiling thing feels like it's once again only there to show off that it exists. The gameplay itself is pretty straightforward, so this isn't a part that people will struggle with. But I'm more worried about the general existence of this mechanic. For those who haven't touched the editor, this part makes use of the new F block, which causes you to stick to any ceiling you touch by flipping gravity. This was obviously doable before 2.2 by simply using gravity portals or a formation of jump pads like this. The F block was added as a way to standardize this gimmick and make it a little easier to build, but in reality it just created a bigger problem. The F block is invisible. The reason this gimmick used to make sense was because it was an extension of pre-established mechanics. Normally you die when you hit a ceiling, but these pads indicate that you'll likely be flipped instead. But now, it's entirely up to the creator to decide how this should be communicated. For Dash, it's done with this green glow, but it's not mandatory. When it comes to custom levels, you'll never truly know if a ceiling will flip you until it's already happened. If there was a consistent visual for the F block, this part would be fine, but it was implemented in a way in which there will never truly be one. I think this part of Dash would feel a lot less overwhelming if it gave you a break and made use of some pre-established mechanics, but apparently everything needs to be shown off at this level. Anyways, one last thing which I don't want to spend too much time on, it's these potions that take the place of mini portals. I still don't understand why these couldn't have just been portals since that's already an established game mechanic, but I don't think it hurts the level all that much. I just wish it was maybe saved for a different section, since there's already so much going on in this queue part, and all it does is fry people's brains even more. I'm a big sucker for consistency, and I don't like seeing basic mechanics completely flipped around for no reason. That being said, I do think these potions are extremely good for platformer mode. Going through portals is kind of awkward in platformer, so these potions make for a really neat solution. In the very odd chance that Dash was trying to standardize that, I'm all for it. So this takes us to the drop, where we get this epic slow-mo zoom-in and a voice reminding us what the game is called.
Geometry challenge.
What else can I say here but 10 out of 10 drop. So far the whole level was building up to this, and it does not disappoint. This leads into the new swing portal, which has some extremely basic gameplay to help you understand how the game works. This is also the first free fly section, which means that there's no ceiling or ground constraining you to a small area, and it works so smoothly. The visuals here are incredibly cool, with brand new snow particles, zappers, and the super skull die. I absolutely love the zoom out halfway through, which gives you more room to see what's up ahead, but also lets you take in all of your surroundings. Even though there isn't much air decoration, this is one of those rare cases where the background in this level feels less like a solid image and more like an actual background, like you're powering through some sort of cool fortress in the hills. What I find most interesting about this part is the way the swing is introduced, because it's almost perfect. Stereo Madness, you have a ton of empty space to let down by the gem. Cycles has big arrows for your first ball flips. Theory of Everything intentionally removes ground spikes so you have more space to learn the UFO. And with Dash, if you don't click in the first second, you fall into the water. Not really, because this water doesn't kill you. Instead, you slide up this ramp and get launched, where it's pretty obvious that you should click to fly. Except not really, because this only works if you jump into the portal extremely late. If we take a look in the editor, the part that kills you is extended a little bit too far. So, if you jump to the portal too early, there's a good chance that you'll hit it. This is most likely a mistake, at least I hope it is, but it's a shame because it ruins what would have otherwise been a great introduction to the game mode. It's not a big empty space to learn like Stereo Madness, but this is level 22, you don't need that anymore. Following the swing part is the first actual sideways section, and it is so cool. The way the camera rotates and your gravity changes could not be done more smoothly, and you have a ton of time to process the first jump, which is over this very bright and obvious lava pool. I really can't express how awesome this part plays, looks, and especially feels, which is why it's such a shame to see that spider part from earlier not only spoil the surprise, introduce an intuitive way. Unlike that part, this section could not be easier to follow along with. It's a flawless transition into more straightforward gameplay. And don't even get me started on the music. Anyways, this part is short, and you quickly transition into a... wait a second. What portal is that? So, this is a combination of the robot, double speed, normal ground, and regular size portal. And I can only think of 3 reasons for why it might be this orange thing. Number 1, it's too many portals, which makes no sense because this cube part also has 4 stacked portals. Worst case scenario, the gravity portal can be invisible. Number 2, it just looks cool. A case of, I made and programmed this cool spinny portal, so damn it, you're gonna appreciate it whether it hurts the level or not. Or number 3, withholding vital and clearly established information from the player is now a game mechanic. This is geometry, that impossible cube thing. It was never supposed to be there. This is such an easy fix to make the portals visible. And make sure to get that gravity portal right on top of the robot so you think it's the wave and die. The actual robot part is pretty simple, with some time to react to the camera rotation followed by a jump or 2 into a ball portal. The screen-wide radial blur effect at the start of this section makes it feel a lot more energetic than it actually is, but I think that's why I love it so much. It's a fantastic and unobtrusive use of shaders. Towards the end of this part, there's a bit of freedom with how you enter the ball portal. You can optionally skip one of the platforms, or even the blue orb with the right timing. But I actually like this. It's harder than the intended way, so there's no harm in leaving it in for style points versus trying to prevent it with spikes. This robot part is also the cutoff for where the original 2.2 sneak peek ended, and to me, this is the first level where that actually means something. If it isn't obvious from how much I've been talking, there is so much going on in this first quarter of the level, and I think it's because it was made for the sneak peek specifically to impress people. Some parts do a good job, others not so much, but you can't deny that it makes for an awesome showcase. But with the sneak peek part over, I find that now Dash just becomes a regular level. There's much less pressure to show up. It's fun to play. To me, everything past the sneak peek is Dash at its absolute best, and I can't wait to dig deeper into them. So let's keep going. The Boulevard continues to expand on the gimmick of rotating gameplay, and it's once again done extremely smoothly. It's super easy to follow along with, and feels like a short break from all the back-to-back chaos that's been thrown at you so far. It's fairly long for a level that's been rapidly changing the game mode, and it definitely helps you cool down. I really like this tight corridor vibe that this part is going for. It's a nice change of theme that still feels connected to the rest of the level. Also, shout out to the area trigger that lights up the spikes as you pass by. It's such a cool effect. I noticed that the platforms are glowing green here, which makes it visually consistent with the sticky ceilings from earlier. Mechanic-wise, it's completely different since you're the ball now, but visually it makes sense and it's a nice
I'm playing with someone, I'm playing with someone. Bro, watch my stream, watch my stream. I'm streaming, I'm streaming.
as you go through it, but you might not realize since the
Oh, you're
camera
streaming?
goes down. But
Yeah.
still, the change to gameplay
Every time I play Fresh
Oh,
Start,
bro.
actually doing something.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna watch the video, bro. Oh, yeah,
No.
I'm gonna be in the stream, bro. I'm gonna be in the stream.
Nice.
You know, man.
I will point
Be
out
in the
that
stream,
the
bro.
gear falls apart after the first few
Only
plays.
streaming.
But as someone who sees this
Oh,
part
that's
section
tough.
for the next burst of energy, I don't think it's a problem.
It's
It
a-
reminds me a little bit of
Oi!
Hexagon Force,
Bro's
but
messing up.
probably because of that one slope.
Yeah,
After the ball,
Bro, I'm
there's
playing
a
with a
second
pro.
section, which has very similar
The
visuals
bros.
to the first one,
What am I-
now
what am I
with
doing?
primarily orange.
Where's the Wi-Fi so
As much as
shit?
I enjoy when decorations
Where's not this shit before?
I think this is okay, since
Why is the Wi-Fi so shit?
but differentiates them through smoothness, color, silhouette, and temperature. The first sweet section has snowflake particles and nice smooth water.
Just be chilling, you know, being chilling.
Fire, not to mention.
Oh, I'm watching your stream right now. Actually, not yet.
Dude, where's Abomination?
Familiar, but not the same.
I don't know.
What?
Set of the game. It
No,
would
oh, wait, I'm not even
but I also think that this back and forth pattern is where it shines the most.
Fine. It was what?
There's a good chance that it's a skill issue since you.
Why am I
don't
searching
control
Peppa Pig?
upside
I'm not
down.
searching
But other
Peppa
than
Pig,
that,
bro.
everything's fine. It's just your average swing section with nothing too crazy. If you're colorblind, that is. Secret coin number 2. B tier for best we're probably gonna get. See the zapper over here? It's a slightly different color. Flying through it reveals a secret upper area where you can snag a coin and then head back down. Personally, I think this coin would have been perfectly fine if it was visible from the get-go. It's a relatively tight gap to fly through, and if you're able to handle that, it's a sign that you're pretty good at controlling the swing. It's not too far off from the precise line of flying or going through the wall in Electromagnetic Adventures. If it's gonna stay visible, I guess it could be buffed to be a little tighter, but it's not that urgent. I know it's called a secret coin, but seeing this one turn invisible hurts a lot. There are no other coins that start invisible until you do something.
My god, the
closest
graphics
thing we have
quality
is
is
the
so
key and
shit.
dead moth, and a few coins that are simply not in the camera's view.
Why the
Require memorization, but what ties them together is that they're always
Thank
somewhere.
God.
Then,
Why
along came
are-
the spin
why
off
am I
games,
stuck naked?
Geometry Meltdown and Geometry Sub-Zero.
Well, my
These
stuff are
levels were made
naked
from the
right now.
ground up in the modern editor with tons of new features, like this cursed artifact, Alpha Trigger. A single object with the power to make anything vanish. At first, it was used for good. The second coin in Viking Arena is completely invisible, but there's a clever visual hint that most players will be drawn to. But then, it's Sub-Zero, and all hell broke loose. Next thing you know, coins are now invisible and fading into existence when you do the strangest task, like skipping an orb or running into a random wall. These coins are
Blood
no
warning
longer about
in the
showing
prep.
off your skill
Blood
as a player.
warning.
It's about finding the
Don't
tiny things
care
wrong
about
with the
blood.
level and then getting a free
I
coin
don't know
from
what I
it.
did
I mean, the
anyway.
first coin of this very level matches that definition perfectly. The second coin is an improvement since it takes a bit of skill to get, but the focus has been shifted. It doesn't feel like the tight swoop coin, it feels more like, congratulations, you know what colors are. Speaking of colors, see the difference here. Now, I'm red-green colorblind, which means that shades of those colors look more similar to me. For example, in the game Terraria, I struggle to differentiate the Iron Skin and Swiftness potions, which is kind of funny since the vast majority of potions have their own shape, but these ones. Anyways, in this case, I have no trouble making out the difference in color here, but some people do struggle. I still strongly believe that the coin path should be completely visible, but if we're gonna do it this way, why not add some kind of shape-based hint here? Maybe it could be smoke particles, or the lack of an animation, but just something. It's kinda sad that we went from colorblind-friendly portals to this. Long story short, I like the coin for its gameplay, hate it for the decision to make it invisible, but I'll give it a pass solely because I'm actually able to brainstorm ways to fix it, unlike the last one. Next up is yet another spider part. Nothing too fancy here, it's just a quick I'll be more straightforward, but at least it's kind of fun. That takes us to this cube section, which plays around with some dash orbs followed by two uses of the new spider orb. Some people argue that this is where the level's visuals start to fall off, but I think it's just as good as every other one.
That's why I didn't know,
Cleaning them out.
you know.
Also, official levels have never had that much air decoration, which
I
I'm
know
not too
they
bothered by. It gives the level a very vanilla feel because that's literally what it is. Side note, shout out to the camera work in this part. The Y position is fixed in place and it works so nicely. I sort of like
I
that
don't
first
have
dash orb
merchant.
since it's extremely clear where you need to release
What's
it.
to
It
not
doesn't use
even
any
know?
S-blocks, which are the invisible objects that stop your dash. This should really be the standard for how dash orbs are used, but S-blocks have become so common that the bar keeps getting lower and lower. I like this teleport portal a lot because along with being chained to the dash orb, it's simply a teleport portal. There's no weird gimmicks going on here, it's just the same way a teleport portal has always worked, and sometimes that's all you need. The teleport does secretly reset your gravity,
merchant.
but I actually think that's more intuitive than staying upside down. The second dash orb is simply a diagonal boost upwards, but it's placed at a perfect point in the song and has an awesome visual to go along with it. It's so simple, but still makes you feel really cool doing it. This one does have S-blocks to stop your dash, but they're mostly just there to smoothen the transition since you have to wait for the camera to pan up. Finally, the spider orbs here are spider orbs. It's pretty hard to mess up here since it's clear your gravity is going to switch, so if you're not sure what the purple orbs are, your brain will just swap them for blue ones. And really, you get the exact same gameplay though. That's not to say that you need blue orbs, because that's like swapping a spider web with a ball. This bit is okay, but it lacks any sort of meaningful music sync. Anyways, next up is this mysterious hole in the ground.
I do, but my
It's actually this. Before I talk any further, let me start by playing back this whole section.
You don't find many of those around. Use it wisely. No beat.
Geometry
The first time I played this part, I thought the song song completely cut out. I don't think I'm alone in that. It gets very silent at the beginning of this build-up, but in turn it also makes it more exciting. It's a little off-putting, but I'm not here to complain about the music, especially when the rest of the song is just so good. In all honesty, I was expecting a single screen section in this level, just because it's such an iconic thing to come out of 2.2. The idea was tested out with press start, and even in another sneak peek before, and it works really well. This time though, there's gameplay rotation.
Good luck out
I think
there.
it's decently clear how this part of the level works, but I can identify two notable flaws that make it a touch more confusing than it needs to be. Firstly, it looks like you're running into a wall that can kill you, but given the moving arrows, the rotations earlier in the level, and the fact that there's nowhere else to go, you should be able to tell that something is
For
wrong.
battery sheet.
Either way, I think it needs some extra visual. In Super Mario World, this exact gimmick is triggered by running into one of these pink triangles, and I think a decoration like that would work just fine. Alternatively, maybe a half pipe like this would communicate it even more easily. Second issue is these spiky blocks that prevent you from breaking through, sitting and jumping. In my opinion, they just don't look enough like obstacles. In fact, they reuse the texture from those blocks at the start of the level, so it almost seems like I think there are any saws in this level, so maybe just something that's spikier. Aside from that, the gameplay here is solid. It's just a bunch of jumps over some easy hits, but it works surprisingly well for this build. Visually, this whole part looks a little empty, but there's actually a lot of really cool stuff going on here. For one, this is the first mid-level background change in an official level. Again, I feel like most creators now just think of the background as an empty, wasted space, but in reality, it's a background. It's specifically there so you don't need to build one yourself, and the one in this part of the level works really nicely. One detail I really like is this glitch effect on the first rotation, which syncs with the music and feels like some sort of disturbance that's causing the rotated gameplay in the first place. If you pay very close attention to the background, you'll also see some blocky dust bubbling from the ceiling like something big is about to
Should I say chat?
Oh, and fun fact, this is the first time in the
Should I say
level
chat?
where touching a
Should I
surface
say
doesn't
it?
cause it to light up or react in some way. But it's not that necessary.
Be tight.
When it comes to
Oh, are you guys?
it's kind of fun, especially how the numbers set themselves.
I don't
You also
care. What is that? What's called, bro? Where's that man?
That's every player's worst nightmare,
I
bro.
was going to give this an F for my coin tier list, but then I checked that row and saw that most of the F's
Also,
were
can you share
visible
your screen
points
so I
and
get like
some
the
gameplay
actual
attached to them.
footage so that
So this one is going to be
it's
even
almost
lower.
the time
Maybe
YouTube
it's enough point
delayed.
to
So
cancel.
can you screen
I could go into
share
detail
your
on
screen?
why I dislike this one so much, but I
Actually, no,
feel like it's
oh, wait,
kind of obvious.
can you
Not
share
to
your screen,
mention, I
bro?
already brought up the whole invisible coin thing over a
Can you
swing.
share your screen, bro?
This coin is completely
After a little bit, can you share your screen?
its existence.
Just a little bit.
Basically, it's the first one.
I know, it is.
Can be improved by coin half visible and reel it in every time you click. But similar to the first coin, no amount of hints will improve it from a gameplay perspective, which again is just clicking a few times with
Screen,
zero
bro.
risk.
Oh, please,
It's
I'm begging
lazy,
you,
it's
share
dumb,
your
and it's yet another
screen.
sign that coin placements are
Share your
only getting
screen, I'm
worse and
begging
worse.
you.
Also, as a little exercise, I decided to try moving the
You,
coin
share
to
your
the
screen,
Charlie
got it.
spot.
Wait.
It's not amazing by any means, but here's what I came up with.
I am just chilling in the wind.
So next is this triple speed ship part with a super epic part of the song to go along with it. It also continues Roblox creation of ship parts with life and two walls and zero between them. For some reason, this has been really common ever since the spin-off game. I don't love it. It's become iconic. This ship part is pretty easy compared to other parts of the level, unless you're playing on mobile, in which it suddenly becomes Microsoft Power which is ironic because people say this is where the level gets kind of empty. I think it looks about the same though. In fact, we even have
Oh,
these
be
cool
safe
waves
somehow,
that
away.
perfectly complements this part's triple speed. For some reason, there's a tint effect that changes the color of everything, including your icon, and it's excessive. I think there would have been better effects that work here, or maybe none at all if it's causing lag for some players. But chances are the lag is coming from this area trigger part that moves a heck ton of pillars as you fly through them. It's a great effect, and it's one of the highlights of the level for me because it just feels so damn good. You see these two triggers? They actually control all the
Let's
walking
roleplay,
movements, and that's super impressive. But it likely requires more calculations than a line of move triggers, so it's probably the culprit for the lag. Either that or the giant industrial district above it. Side note, as easy as this part is, I often find myself overshooting on the height, only to watch my ship slowly drift down into a spike with nothing I can do to stop it. It could very well be played off as a skill issue, but I also noticed a lot of other players having the same problem. So maybe I would lower these top spikes, or cheat a little bit by making the gravity slightly stronger during the descent. Also, another thing, since the first coin in this level sucked, I tried sneaking a coin into this part as well. Before we move on to the robot, I want to quickly point out one last thing since I wasn't sure when to bring it up. All 22 levels in Geometry Dash have one thing in common, it's that they have a ship part. And this level is no exception. But you know what this level doesn't have? In fact, it is the first level to not have one since it was introduced in Theory of Everything. Now, look, I get it. There's 8 game modes now, and it's hard to fit all of them in this level. After all, Finger Dash had a similar situation with being the first level to not have the balls in the cycle. Which is kind of different, because if you factor in the 3 spin-off games, there's only one level with the UFO, Space Pirates. The one that solely exists as a tutorial for the game mode. And what makes this even funnier is that there are mirror portals in both Striker and Naka, meaning that yes, lately the mirror portal has been getting more official usage than the UFO game mode. It doesn't bother me that much since I'm not too crazy about the UFO, but it's a sad day for all 7 people who think it's the game mode.
Chat, we got a search light.
Section, unless you prefer the
Search
ship,
light?
which you
I don't even know what the search light is, but I cannot see the screen. There's literally nothing happening on the screen. Oh, that is search light.
The robot here
You
is
finally see it.
just a few simple mobs with fans on their side here.
Thanks for sharing me, bro.
Since it helps you feel like a core theme, which it is. It's executed well here, and the fan is a perfect visual to use. I'm sure Gravity Portal
I'm sure,
also
it's
works
sharing,
fine,
sharing.
but this is the fun. Even though this is where I think the music gets really good, there's practically
Oh, that
no
is the
sync during
search
this
light,
entire
bro.
robot part. I kind of see this as another one of those less synced filler parts of the level, like the first robot and the cube before the build-up part. It's just there to have some gameplay at all, but that's fine, because it's literally how building a level works. Sometimes it's nice to have a part of the level that's just a part of the level. I won't deny that this bit does look a little rushed, but upon further investigation, it seems like it has the same level of decoration as most other parts. That being said, it doesn't go above and beyond in any way. Now
Oh yeah,
it's
this
just
is
comfort
so
reality.
actually
I
laggy.
guess there's these big chains now and more snow particles.
This is giving
in
the best
background.
quality,
There's
but
also a glitch effect here, which
this
actually
like
kinda
seems
works.
actually happening.
It's less random than changing your icon color, and dare I say, it even looks good. Overall, this whole section is nothing too mind-blowing. I'll still take it though, because levels in the game just don't look like this. Finally, we enter this.
Is that a guy? Oh.
Transition to lead us into the epic tower part. The background changes once again to
Oh
really
my
set the
god,
theme,
bro,
and
already
the colors
here?
pop out more than ever.
Yeah.
There's a big pool of lava at the bottom, which I kind of expected to rise, but I
What
don't
kind of
actually
set on the
have
timer or
this whole
no?
bit once
Just
again
started.
feels a lot like what Sub-Zero did, but in the good way. Like it's
What?
expanding
Just
on
started?
everything
Okay,
right.
just started.
It
Just
consists
started?
of 4
Okay.
super quick back and forth sprints, each
Just started.
separated
Okay,
by
start
a
timer.
Oh,
I've
no.
just
The
done.
platforming here is pretty
Okay.
fire, but
Yeah,
I think
we're
it's
from-
a
you
transition
still have
that matches
18
up with the song. In fact, just
Bro, you still have 18 hours left, bro. You're still good. Still so chill though. 18 hours?
Yeah, I'll slowly begin.
The timer's on, by the way. Like, the timer's on. Like, whenever the timer's on, I mean, like,
Oh my god, I suck at this.
So as far as gameplay goes,
timer's
I
on.
don't think
So,
this part
you
does
know,
it.
just
just
do
say,
it.
hey, what's
It's
going
look and feel
on?
cool because it's a good jump.
Okay.
Over on the
You're
bottom
not
floor,
UAV.
there's a couple of platforms that move downwards even if you
So what
can't
the-
jump over them. And I think the gameplay
Did
should have
you
been
chill?
restructured instead of just rolling the this.
It's
I get that
here.
you need to touch
Cloud.
on the surfaces for music's sake, but still, if there's one part of the level that feels a bit rushed to me, it's that. Second floor, there's
Get you.
dumped on here. If this part was a drink,
Jeez.
tap water. Floor 3, we get a little spicy with a wave part. There's not much going on in it, but it works well with the music. It feels super
No.
cool. I
Oh,
love
I
the way
don't-
you can see the section slowly scrolling through you and think, yo, there's a wave
Oh,
part
it's
next.
like that.
My only complaint is that visually, nothing happens here. Not even any sort of
Oh
story.
my
It
god.
feels a bit lifeless for what's supposed to be one of the strongest
What?
parts of the song. In fact, you can say
What?
this about the entire tower.
I'm
The
coming.
are good, but
Get
aside from
down.
the platforms, it's completely static. Nothing changes. I like that all the gameplay is clearly laid out in or the color palette. Use a shader, just anything. Finally, the level ends with this green orb in the fan before you're sucked into this skull doubling as the level's endpoint. The fan is a great solution to making sure you end the level perfectly centered on the screen, and I would much rather have that than an orb which randomly reverses. The skull over here marks the first custom ending in an official. And in my mind, it's not over the top in the slightest, and it still follows through with the normal level complete animation. It's just as familiar as always with a very slight spin on it. And it's a good starting point for the inevitable explosion of custom endings we're probably going to see in future levels. Also, it just makes sense because it's the peak of the tower, and how are you going to end on the right side of the screen? The best feedback I can give for this ending is that it's just more like a nice, like you're in the tower, where you just land on a random platform, and the level's just doesn't feel like it's a skull. Skulls have been a recurring theme throughout the level, and more importantly, in Geometry Dash in general. So this begs the question, what do they represent? Are you a skull?
This thing
Is there a
is not moving off.
there because they look cool. I'm sure there's a theory or two on this. Overall, I think the biggest flaw of this final tower is the amount of weight into it. The breaks between gameplay feel like they're longer than they need to be, and it definitely kills the hype just a little bit. I decided to hop into the editor and see if I could do things, and while the camera work is far from perfect, this is my concept for a rework of this section.
Oh yeah, that's super soft. They both like actually
Oh yeah,
three
and
things
while
at
I
once.
discovered what the level
And none
actually
of them are
does in
productive
this,
things.
and it's so silly. I love
That's
it.
funny.
Even though there's teleport triggers and all this cool new editor stuff, you literally just slide up a ramp. Anyways, that is Dash and everything I have to say about it. Regardless of if you like it or not, I can't deny that it's a super creative level filled with tons of interesting details and a very rich with every update in this game, the levels get exponentially more impressive, and I think Dash shows up. So with all that yapping done and my voice absolutely dead, is Dash a good level? Oh, you tell me. In my opinion, the answer is not only yes, absolutely. When I played this level for the first time, I loved it, and I immediately took note of everything that made me feel that way. But is the level perfect? Well, no. There's definitely a couple of blunders, some bigger than others. But you know what? That's okay, because every level has its flaws. I'm sure there's things I dislike that other people enjoyed, or even the other way around. To me, the biggest weaknesses of the level were the overloaded mechanics at the beginning, and especially the coin placements. But its strengths were the way rotation was used after the initial spider part, and the overall sight reading
That's why.
past where not to mention, the visuals are gorgeous.
Wrong.
The biggest reason that I point out
Are you
issues
kidding?
with the level is because they serve as
Wait,
lessons for level designing and balancing.
That's
Creators
why.
at the very least consider
That's
some
why
of the
we
points I
like
made
so
when I
hard.
worked on their own projects. Whether trying out the things I like or treating the things I didn't as a lesson on what not to put into
Oh my
geometry.
god, there's some
Now here's something I wanted to
That's
quickly
not
bring
even
up. Personally, I
That's
think
not
that
great.
as past the weird start of the level is around the same difficulty
Chat,
as
that was
like
Blitz.
Finger
That's just
Dash. And I find Finger Dash easier than levels like
What was that?
Dynamics
Blitz.
and Hexagon
That
Force.
was,
So I
squirrel.
think it should be demoted to harder. But
Hey,
Geometrical
Spider.
Dominator is harder, and
The
I find
years.
that level a bit trickier.
Spider.
So I guess that one should be insane. And then I also think Electrodynamics should be an easy demon. So maybe it's Finger Dash that's graded correctly and Electrodynamics that isn't. Okay, you know what? My head hurts. The difficulty system in this game isn't exactly amazing. Still, my gut feeling is that the two Dash brothers should be rated harder. Oh, and one more thing before I go. If you're interested in the
Just finish my play.
I've actually uploaded it as a full level to my
Chat, this is not rich,
This
brother.
isn't
Chat.
perfect version. It's definitely very rough edits.
Chat, this isn't rich, brother. This isn't
Must
rich.
be good.
Anyways, if you're somehow still here, thanks for attending my
Chat, this isn't rich.
I can proudly say that you made it through everything I will ever have to say about this silly little
Chat,
level
this
that took
isn't
7
rich.
years of procrastination to make.
Oh,
In
really?
conclusion, it's a good
Mind the
level.
smell of
Sadly,
flowers.
you
Okay, she
never
smells
live
like
up to
flowers.
the challenge.
Chat, she smells like. Hello?
You ever play a really good Geometry Dash level and just think, man, I love this level so much. I wish it was blue. Wait, that actually worked? Mythic Geometry Dash levels are definitely one of the simpler but more interesting changes to come out of Update 2.2. It's a badge of honor given to only the best of the best custom levels to forever highlight the fact that it's masterfully designed. As of right now, the rating's been out for 11 months, and there's currently 10 mythic levels in the game, 5 classic and 5 platform. So I figured, I love reviewing random stuff like this, why not talk about that? I have lots of great things to say about these levels, but also some constructive criticism that I think is healthy to share. Also, since there's 10 levels, I might as well rank them in an extremely subjective top 10 list that's entirely based on my own opinion. It's just gonna be a rough organization of the levels I enjoyed from least to most, so please don't take it too seriously, it means nothing. But before we start, I want to share my thoughts on the mythic
The
system
house
in
bro
general.
right there.
Like I said, it hasn't even been a
No,
year,
this
and
is
there's
not
already
the
10
ridge. This
mythic
is not the
levels.
ridge. No,
This
it's
heavily goes
just
against the
trendy.
developer Roblox's original promise that there would only be
Actually,
2
my
games
friend,
per
like,
year.
actually broke my.
Except not really, because I don't think he
This
ever
is
actually
this
said
is
that.
what I
I
planned
checked
for.
his Discord, Twitter, level comments, and I
Pretty good
couldn't
news,
find
I
any
guess.
sign of Roblox ever actually
But
making
still,
this
I think
promise.
Bro's gonna
I
win.
mean, 4 years ago he said
Oh.
a few times a year, but this was way before 2.2 was even close to releasing. So either his original statement was lost to time, or we've all been collectively Mandela affected. That being said, Roblox did follow up more recently by saying that Mythic is just a great way to highlight the incredible work of the creators, so giving up more of them isn't really a bad thing. And I think this is absolutely the right attitude to have. Yes, some Mythic levels might be less mythic than others, but I can't help but feel honored to be in a community where one of our flaws is the fact that the levels are too good. Unfortunately, not everyone sees it that way. And it's starting to feel like Mythic tears this community apart more than it brings us together. Whether a level does or doesn't get Mythic, people will always find a way to be disappointed. And the reason for that is obvious. Everyone likes different things for different reasons, so it's hard to label a geometry dash level as perfect when that's extremely subjective. Prior to 2.2, the idea of a Mythic level was done through word of mouth. Every now and then a level like White Space or I Spy or Change of Scene would drop, and even though it would just get a boring old epic level, there would be endless discussion in the community about what makes it so special. But now, when a level gets rated Mythic, it almost feels like you have to force yourself to like it. There's usually no explanation given for why it even got Mythic, so you have to play the level with super high standards and figure it out for yourself. And if it doesn't end up appealing to you in particular, it leaves you really disappointed, especially if it's a platformer level, which is a huge time commitment. For that reason, I think the solution might just be to make Mythic more objective, something that would allow it to reflect the community.
4 days up.
There's no solution that will please everyone. With that out of the way, here are my personal thoughts on each Mythic level, ranked based on how much you enjoyed them. Please don't take the order too seriously, because like I said, Mythic is very subjective. All of these levels are
All the
fantastic,
further,
and I
bro.
couldn't be more proud of the creators for pouring their hearts into such amazing works. Got it? Alright, let's do this. Coming in at last place is Pixel Path 2 by Owixan. I'm gonna butcher a lot of names in this video, I'm so sorry. This one is a really cool platformer with some sick theming, but unfortunately I have to put it in last place since it's held back by a lot of pretty severe design issues. That's not to say I hate the level though, I absolutely love the vision for it, and it really shines in its environmental storytelling. This level is obviously a sequel to the shorter Pixel Path 1, but you don't really need any context for it. Both of them involve exploring some kind of lab, but in Pixel Path 2 there's also all this as well. A casual playthrough of the level will take about half an hour, but it never gets boring since you constantly move on to different areas that all have so much
That is very
personality.
unhealthy,
Like, look at how you
but-
transition into the robot, or like this section with the train, or this part with the ATM where it's like... Not to mention the entire ending of this level, which is pure cinema. Seriously, whenever this level does something right, does it ever? Oh, and there's also a bunch of hidden items you can apparently find for coins, but I didn't get them. With all that being said, I do think it's important to discuss why I didn't enjoy this level. Not because I hate it, but because there's a lot to learn from it. Starting off with the most important issue, you can't see. There isn't enough contrast between the decoration and actual gameplay, which means that you constantly have to guess if an object is solid or not. Normally that's not the end of the world, but some of the spikes in this level are like straight up camouflage. Level design is one of the most important things to communicate to a player, and sadly it wasn't really a priority for me. By the end of the level, I was genuinely terrified to touch anything even remotely spiky, because it was a total 50-50 on if it would kill you or not. No joke, I would have enjoyed this level so much more if I had hitboxes turned on, which is very problematic because I shouldn't need hacks for this information to be communicated. I also noticed there were a lot of gimmicks which you have no chance of understanding on your first try. So essentially, you have to die to them to learn how they work. Like this icy pond, or the fling from this zip line, or this single room where you randomly die for being too loud. There's a section where you have to stop a train, and the whole time I have no idea what to do. So I guess that does reflect how it would play out in real life. It just sucks because these are all awesome ideas that have so much potential. Once again, I love what the creator was going for, but there clearly wasn't enough playtesting, which is a must for a project of this caliber. What really ruined the experience for me, though, is the chase section. If you played Pixel Path 2, you're probably having war flashbacks right now. About halfway through the level, there's this random chase sequence where you have to be absolutely perfect. If you hesitate for even a split second, and since you can't see, it's basically all memory. And the section has a lot of weird obstacles that you don't really get a chance to strategize. I played this level when it first got rated, but since then it's actually gotten a couple of updates. Most notably, this part has a practice mode. I was hoping it would offer a chance to freely scout out the obstacles, but unfortunately it just slows down time and you're still being chased at the same rate. Also, this has fortunately been removed, but on my original playthrough, I died so many times here that the level actually started making fun of me, saying things like, "Are you AFK?" and "Stop grinding attempts." I thought I was making progress on this part, but these messages implied that I was still doing so much worse than the creator ever imagined. To me, this is honestly kind of disgusting. There's really no excuse for talking down to the players simply because they're struggling with a hard section. The works in context were like, the joke is that the game hates you, but here it feels like a direct attack. The big takeaway is to get testers for your level so you can identify where people struggle the most. And more than anything, remember that games are fun because of their mechanics, not the setting or visuals or effects or anything like that. In fact, constantly dying to visual clutter makes it harder to appreciate the details. So regardless of how well you can decorate and animate, your level will leave a bad taste if it doesn't focus on the actual playability. Don't get me wrong, this level blew my mind and it still continues to. But the reason I'm placing it so low is because it's basically just an effect showcase, and I find that playing it is no more enjoyable than just looking up a video on YouTube. In fact, by not playing it, I get to appreciate the details even more, like I'm watching some cool animation. This level was the first place winner of Waboo's $1,000 Stereo Madness contest, so for that reason, the gameplay is just a nerf version of Stereo Madness. But that's okay, because you're not supposed to care about the gameplay. What matters is that it goes absolutely nuts with the visuals in the best way possible. Not to mention, the way it intentionally kills you a bunch of times is super clever and very out of the box. Or should I say, out of the screen? I could go on about every tiny detail in this level, but I really do think it speaks for itself, considering it won the popular vote on the community as a whole. It definitely helps that this is a glorified auto level, since it makes it accessible to every player, compared to most other mythics which I've beaten. I'm also super glad that it got rated easy instead of normal, since the blue on the overall, I like Rage Quit, just not because of how it plays. To me, there's so much more to Geometry Dash than just sitting back and watching a light show. Tears of Denial by Matthew Game was the 10th level to ever get Mythic, and after his legendary streak, I'd say he had it coming. Most of his levels are very combat focused, with a sharp pixel art style and some extremely impressive engines running behind the scenes. But Tears of Denial cranks this up to a whole other level, to the point that you can't even tell you're playing Geometry Dash anymore. I don't even think this level uses a single vanilla mechanic. Even the movement feels different. It's just so amazing from a technical standpoint. The actual level is a sort of boss rush where you have to do 3 increasingly difficult fights with multiple phases and lots of unique attack patterns. The bosses themselves are super cool as well, and the entire level just has this awesome art and animation style unlike anything I've ever seen before. The checkpoints are extremely slow, so you have to really master all the attack patterns and strategically aim at your hits. Finally, the storytelling is also really nicely done.
Dude, I got to the ridge.
All around, Tears of Denial is an excellent game that happens to be made inside of
I'll call you back.
Now, there's 2 main reasons why I'm putting this so low.
Call me back, call me back, call me back.
Level, I wasn't
Call
able
me
to-
back.
Fortunately, you probably didn't even notice that I was using Nexus's footage this entire time. So, thank you, Nexus. Also, please unblock me from your comment section. I don't know why I'm blocked. I've only ever said nice things about the levels you showcase. But yeah, I'm just not good at these kinds of fighting games. I suck at conserving every last point of HP, and when I mess up, it can be really annoying to replay the same 5-minute fight over and over again. It's a total skill issue on my end, and I don't want to force myself to play a genre that I don't like. You're looking at someone who struggles with the Hollow Knight bosses and wins Kirby in Smash, so make of that what you will. My second problem with this level is the fact that it actually borrows a lot from another game called World. Art style, boss designs, and even entire animations are lifted from it. And yet, as far as I can tell, the level doesn't actually credit Worldless in any way outside of the prequel level being called Shapeless. which kinda sucks because lots of commenters and even Vibrant praise this level for being mostly original. And I had to search far and wide to find even the smallest mentions of world. I'd never heard of the game before researching this video, and that's a problem because it shouldn't be kept a secret. It's clear that Tears of Denial was made out of love for the game, so that love for it should be shared with others rather than mocked. Look, it's totally fine to take inspiration from other games when making something, but I also think the level would have still been insanely good without trying to lift so much from it. I know it's just a passion project, so I really don't want to use this as futurism, but it's worth having a discussion about what actually does become fun, because as the editor becomes more like a connection, recreating games
Chat, we're about to beat
impressive or like stealing. But I'll touch on that more later. Anyways, indie game developers need all the support they can get, and I don't think it's right to borrow this much from them and then leave the level description blank for their lives. So if you enjoyed Tears of Denial and want to play a combat platformer kind of like it, definitely check out Worlds. It released about a year ago on all platforms to overwhelmingly positive reception. See, it never hurts to give credit. Thanks so much, Nexus.
Chat.
I like trains.
Astrolith is a mega collab by GeoGamer12 and many other talented
Chat, we're about to beat it. We're about to beat it.
Because the theming in this level is fire. This opening section pretty much tells you exactly what you're getting into, and the level only gets more impressive as you go on. Plus, the music is awesome, and the level complements it so well whether you use the song replacement or not. Being a mega collab, each section feels wildly different from one another, which has both benefits and drawbacks. Obviously, the style of visuals and gameplay changes with each section, which helps keep the level fresh, but comes at the cost of less consistency, which is important for giving a level its personality. It really feels like you're exploring some kind of magical universe, and even though you're just randomly jumping from scene to scene without much that connects them, I think that works fine for a 2-minute Geometry Dash level. But for that reason, it also feels less like world building and more like the level is trying to show you as many different locations and characters as possible without a coherent narrative that ties it together. Does the level need one? Not really, but I think it would have left more of an impact on me if it did. Regardless, the problem with Geometry Dash is that it's hard to feel immersed in these kinds of levels since you're so hyper-focused on the gameplay. For a player, taking in all the visuals just isn't a priority. Unless you're watching on YouTube, I guess, which there's nothing wrong with. From a gameplay standpoint, Astrolith is average.
Chillin'?
I've never been
Chillin'?
too fond of levels with a realistic is put into the visuals, you already know that the gameplay will be about as interesting as drinking a glass of water. That's not to say there's no good ideas in it, though. Like the ship part at the drop is really interesting. And the train section towards the end. Plus, I'm glad that they didn't try to force any gameplay into this dragon cutscene, so that you can just sit back and appreciate it. I will say that some parts in this level could definitely benefit from clearer gameplay, since there's a few spots where it really meshes with the decorations. At the end of the day, Geometry Dash is still a game meant to be played, so it's usually wise to make sure there's a strong contrast between the gameplay and background, even if it means making the visuals look a tiny bit uglier. To me, a good Geometry Dash level is more fun to play than it is to watch, but after beating Astrolith, I was more than cool with just pulling it up on YouTube. I did not expect to like Throat of the World, let alone beat Newton, but somehow both of those things happened, so this is technically my first Extreme Demon, but it's a platformer level, so no, it's not. This level is just pure vanilla gameplay. You versus the environment, and since that aligns so much more with the types of platformer games I like, I managed to make it through this one in 4 hours and 800 deaths. For context, my first completion of Farewell from Celeste took 7 hours and 3,000 deaths, so it's not a perfect comparison. The thing I really love about this level is that there's no annoying gimmicks that make it hard. The custom mechanics are used very sparingly, and there's no cheap moves like spike clipping or overly aggressive slope climbs. It's just pure tech, with precise jumps and heavy focus on vanilla features like slopes, ice blocks, and momentum. And while some of these things, most notably slopes, are pretty unfun to deal with, they're never used unfairly. In fact, I'd argue that this level does a great job with how it uses ice. The main reason this one is on the lower end of the list is simply because it's really hard. Harder levels mean slower progress, and slower progress means less reward, and less reward means less dopamine for my little fox brain. What's annoying is that when you're dealing with a hard level, even the tiniest gameplay problems can be enough to really bother you. Like there's a few checkpoints that are especially difficult, or have some pretty obnoxious choke points right at the end. In the moment, it absolutely sucks and you hate everything, but as soon as you beat it, you suddenly feel amazing. So yeah, when I played this level, my mood was constantly swinging back and forth based on how much I liked each part. But again, there's no part that I would say is bad. I really like how the checkpoints are distributed in this level because they're not too close, but also not too far. They're done in a way in which you can really feel yourself improve at each section, which is exactly how it should be. The level also has 2 boss fights, both of which are amazingly designed and just short enough for it to not feel like a pain to retry over and over again. Like I said with Tears of Denial, I've never been crazy about boss fights, but the final boss of this level absolutely blew my mind. It is so well made, with super fun tech patterns that are all perfectly elegant. We have to store your attacks off screen since you can't create or destroy objects. This whole fight is so cool. All in all, fantastic level. I never thought I'd see an extreme demon with gameplay that isn't just tech spam, but I was happily proven wrong. Normally, I'd encourage you to go play this level if you like hard platformers, but honestly, I'd wait until there's some sort of progress saving feature. Beating this all in one sitting can get really exhausting, and when you're playing levels this hard, it's important to be able to take breaks. But if you think you're hardcore enough to beat this in one session, I expected it to take much longer before there would be 10 mythic levels to rank. But then the NCS Gauntlet contest happened, and people went so hard that it led to 3 new mythic levels. I think they're all great, but the one I enjoyed the least was Berserker X Cav Soup WannaCry. It's WannaCry. Look, before you start screaming, WannaCry is an amazing level. It's very worthy of mythic, but it's just not my favorite compared to the other ones. I know a lot of people who absolutely love this level, and I think that's awesome. But once again, this list is based on how much I personally enjoy each one. By the way, WannaCry is pretty crazy, so I'd like to give a huge flash warning for this section of the video. I'll try to be careful with what footage I use, but if you're uncomfortable at all, it's fine to look away or skip to the next level. So, WannaCry is the 4th place winner of the NCS contest, and it's pretty easy to see why. It manages to do a lot with digital virus hellscape theming in a way that's somehow not too cliché. The whole level also does a fantastic job complementing the music, despite being so incredibly different from whatever the original music video was going for. The level is named after the WannaCry ransomware attack from 2017. I'm really confused by WannaCry getting name dropped in one of my classes. Obviously, the level is very creative in both the visuals and the gameplay. Like, this 3D section is brilliant, and even though it's a bit janky, I do like that it's at the very start of the level, so dying feels a lot less punishing. Even beyond that, every section of the level does at least one cool thing I've never really seen before. My favorite part is definitely the screen.
Dude, I got to the end of the ridge.
Really what?
I got to the end.
It's a great usage of the game mode, and I don't think the ship
I got
will
to
have the same impact. Being an
I
XL
did it.
medium demon, which was officially discouraged by the way, I had some worries going into this level, but it actually ended up being very easy to learn, especially that first part, which felt hopeless in practice mode. But my main problem with this level is that similar to Astrolith, it clearly cares more about the audience on YouTube than the people actually playing the level. Because even though the effects in this level look great, they're extremely anti-player. You're constantly being blinded by absurd amounts of flashing lights and visual chaos, and you don't even get a chance to focus on most of the details since you need to look ahead at the actual gameplay, which is constantly being obstructed. This wave part in particular is probably the worst example of this, and it really hurt my eyes when I was practicing it. I'm not saying this level shouldn't be flashy, it's clearly a huge part of its identity, but I really do think that the level could have achieved the exact same impact without having effects that are this brutal. Or at the very least, the gameplay should be more considerate of it. Like, I died a lot at these teleport orbs in the final ship, simply because I can't dart my eyes up and down with all the strobe lights going on. So the icon might as well be invisible. I also died after that at 90%, but I think that one's on me. My biggest takeaway from the NCS Gauntlet was that gameplay clearly wasn't a priority to anyone. And I know it's because it does the least to give your level a unique personality. Most people aren't going to praise a level because the cheats look cool, even though it actually plays a huge role behind the scenes. There's just not much room to innovate with gameplay compared to, like, the story and the realistic action attacks. On one hand, I love how much the contest was able to push the creative limits of our community, but at the same time, it felt like people were less focused on making a unique gameplay experience, and more like they just wanted to put on the best show possible. WannaCry still has a lot of genuinely great spots, but the entire second half of the level felt like it was spitting in my face as a player while pandering a little too hard to the spectators. And here we are at the #1 winner of the NCS contest. Berserker is the 9th mythic level to be rated, and the 2nd mythic to not demon, which technically means that 100% of the non-demon mythics have won $1,000 in prize money. So if you're short on cash, consider. I was actually going to put this one even higher on the list, but the main thing holding me back is that I just don't have that much to say about it. It's just a cool level, and I'm more than happy with it being chosen as the winner of the contest. Naturally, the level feels like it's showing off a bit too hard, though I actually had no major issues with the gameplay, likely because it's not demon. It flows really nicely as long as you understand what it's supposed to do, and most sections are super simple and very effective. It's those for the cube section that plays around with the where you just hit a bunch of orbs, since it takes very boring gameplay and makes you feel awesome from this epic raid going on around you. Similarly, in the ship mod, all you do is follow a trail, where you're more focused on the destruction in the background and the super faithful recreation of the NCS visuals. The gameplay here isn't groundbreaking, but it's still a perfectly valid use of the ship. The weakest part is probably this UFO section where you take the board, since the way you move around is really weird and the whole thing just makes me feel happy. The gameplay in the final ship part also feels extremely streamlined. When you take away the reckless driving in the background, you're just left with this. I don't know how you'd actually go at fixing this, but it's a clear example of putting 99% effort into the visuals and 1% into what you're actually playing. Like here, I put the polar guy ship part over family. Where's my $1,000? But jokes aside, Berserker looks amazing visually, and it's obviously the main reason I enjoy the level so much. I find that it does a really good job at directing your attention to certain spots on the screen, so you can still appreciate the key details even if you're focused on gameplay. In a demon level like WannaCry, it's just a lot harder to effectively hold on. I love how much sheer chaos there is when there's no combat. Like the way you smash through this building and then defenestrate yourself in this really convincing top-down effect that I haven't seen many people try. There's not really much of a plot line to this level, it's just happen. Like next thing you know, you're getting chainsawed, and then you hop into the car of this rather cool skeleton. I won't sit here describing every little thing that happens in Berserker. Just go play or watch it for yourself. Rex did a super great job, and there's an endless number of details that deserve to be appreciated. Okay, I know we're pretty high on the list, but there's one thing about the Towerverse that I really hate. The fact that it's controversial. It's fine if you don't think it deserves mythic, but that doesn't make it a bad level. I know the art style isn't exactly groundbreaking, but I find that it makes up for it very hard to feel. Visuals don't really make or break.
I'm beating the game.
Like really bullies Undertale for not having hair that low. If anything, I actually prefer this style since I can really see every solid block it's like without using after decorations like other games. The Towerverse is the first ever level to get a mythic rating, being released just 3 months into 2.2, and that's probably why people are so critical. When I think of mythic levels, this is the first one to come to mind. But personally, I could not think of a better choice, because it uses and demonstrates pretty much every new 2.2 feature flawlessly. Pixel blocks, camera controls, area triggers, particles, keyframes, they're all used in such simple but effective ways. Everything still feels like geometry, so the perfect way to inspire players and show them what's possible without making it look complicated. Also, everything in the Towerverse has so much charm. There's a bunch of Russian guys that come like especially the safe indicator. There were definitely some things
No, I died.
message or the use of an achievement system,
No.
but it's all in good fun. Also, the fact that this
Just
level
one room away.
is insanely underappreciated. I don't think people realize just how much work that is for a project of this scale. Moving on to the actual gameplay, it's insanely polished. Every area has its own unique set of mechanics, slowly building on them as you progress, following a super smooth difficulty. There's so much personality at every moment, and the use of coins encourages you to take your time and explore everything. The only major gameplay issues I encountered were like the crappy camera in this cave part and a few bits of the propeller section. Oh yeah, if you don't know the propeller section in this level, this part alone would be enough to get rated as a platformer demon. It's probably where the demon difficulty comes from in the first place, and this is from the level taking an hour to be casual. It centers around this custom mechanic where you jump really high and bump down, but have to heavily focus on how you control yourself there. About halfway through, it starts introducing more advanced techniques sideways gliding, which probably should have been taught in a safer place rather than the middle of a super long checkpoint. I do like the overall checkpoint placement though, since it forces you to be a lot more careful and really master the mechanic. Once you get the hang of it, it's a lot of fun. I feel like I should have been more interested in the narrative for this level, since I sort of just accepted whatever it threw at me. There's nothing groundbreaking about it, and even though the dialogue's a bit plain in the moment, the overall story is fun. It's just enough to immerse you into this world and give you a reason to care about what's going on. I'm pretty sure the creator, 16 Lord, has a whole cinematic universe going on, since the level makes a few references to his previous works, almost like you're expected to know them. It adds to the experience if you do understand, but doesn't take anything away if you don't. I actually spoke to 16 Lord,
Tapos ito kay pa doon more
was planned all the way since the Dash sneak peek, so over 2 years before 2.2 even came out. I respect the hell out of that. He had a vision and he made it happen. Also, apparently the propeller was supposed to be a paraglider that takes you down to the center of the moon, but the final mechanic was made by accident and just ended up being way more fun. All in all, I'm not afraid to say that I like the Towerverse. Hold this against me for as long as you want. It really embraces the fact that it was made in June for the Dash, compared to so many other levels which try to pretend that they aren't. So I'm glad it got mythic since it clearly shows mastery of all the elements that make a good game.
It does.
Did you guys know that Next Cap Soon abbreviates to NCS, which apparently stands for Next Call Submix? Honestly, I'm just as surprised that Next Cap Soon made it this high on the list. I don't think of it as a top tier level, but it made it this far solely out of process of elimination. I had a lot of
Bro,
fun
my
with this level
internet
and
sucks.
practically no issues with it. The level won second place in the NCS Gauntlet contest, and as happy as I am with that placement, I also feel like it was a bit rigged, given that it was rated Mythic a week before the contest was even over. And in classic drop-top fashion, it was recommendation for why. When it comes to an official competition, I think it's important to avoid picking favorites like this until it's over, because it can be discouraging to the other participants. It makes it look like the winner's already been chosen. I still think the level is Mythic worthy, but it really should have stayed at Legendary until the winners were announced. It also led to this awkward situation where instead of the top 3 levels getting Mythic, it was 1, 2, and 4. And it's solely because 2 and 3 were rated before the contest results were announced, and 1 and 4 were rated after. None of this is actually related to the level in any way, but it felt important, so I wanted to speak up about it. So, aside from being an NCS winner, Next Cap Soon is also the second Mythic Mega collab made by GeoGamer12 and the rest of the crew. Whether it's the same team as Astrolith, I'm not entirely sure, but being another Mega collab, the biggest overlap with it is obviously the fact that the style of gameplay and decoration is constantly changing every few seconds, as each creator brings something new to the table. And again, you're sort of jumping from idea to idea without much that actually connects them together. But this time,
Dude, do you think I can beat the game this
style
time?
I've gotten a bit tired of, they did the exact opposite
Wait,
and went for something super cartoony and unique, with bright colors and very strong outlines. The art style doesn't scream Mythic nearly as much as Astrolith, but that